Well, I have to say, I feel like an unlikely person to be standing here today. Because the first time I had to speak under pressure at work didn't go very well. It was actually my first job in a phone call. I had to call someone terribly senior. So I was a bit nervous. And what I wanted to say, I so wanted to say was, "Hello, John, have I caught you at a convenient moment?" I even had a script. You ever done this? But of course, when you're under pressure, what you plan to say and what you actually say aren't always the same, are they? So instead of saying, "Hello, John, have I caught you at a convenient moment?" what came out was, "Hello, James, where have you caught yourself?" Yeah, my colleagues and I, we laugh too at my leaving drinks. We all know communication's important. It's consistently ranked, isn't it, by employers as one of the skills you need to succeed in the workplace. And when I think back to applying for that first job back in 1999, at interview, the directors, they were very clear. They said, "Simon, to succeed in this job, you have to be good on the phone." Which is a shame, as it turned out, of course. But the World Economic Forum and the Partnership for 21st Century Skills have identified 4 critically important competencies for success in the 21st century. Collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. Which makes sense if you think about it, especially when it comes to the spoken word. After all, there's something profoundly human about us talking to one another. And of course, it's innate. From our very first moments in life, we have this desire, this need to express ourselves out loud. Out loud, you know, babies rarely write memos. And as we go through life, each and every one of us, there are these moments where our ability to speak clearly, confidently, and with intent really matters. Not just on the phone, but in meetings, in presentations, negotiations, perhaps. You might even be on a hot date or speaking at a wedding. So if spoken communication is so important, here's my question. How come we don't teach it in schools as a skill that can be consistently worked on and improved? Because we don't. I'm not having a go at teachers. Not least, that's because I'm married to one. And she's here. This is about the curriculum. And I'm not saying that good things aren't happening in schools, in classrooms. They are. But when you look at it, serious speaking skills development, I mean above and beyond simply encouraging people to have a chat. Serious speaking skills development is almost always extracurricular. It relies on the initiative of an individual teacher or school department or perhaps a charity. Now, of course, at this point, there might be some resistance. Some policymakers will say, well, Simon, it's easy for you to say, Mr. Clever Clogs, but how are you going to assess it? Assessing spoken language is difficult. Well, we manage with other languages. Just recently, I was listening to a chief executive of a charity who said, he made the point, he said, when I was at school, my ability to speak effectively only mattered on 2 occasions. The first was at 16 for my German oral exam. The second was at 18 for my advanced German oral exam. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of Germany. I don't support their football team, but I like Germans. I've got German friends. We have any Germans in the house? Woo! Hey! Fantastische! But does it not strike you as odd that the curriculum should value your ability to speak a second or a third language, but not your first? Speaking of charities, that's how I first got involved in running sessions in schools, mostly with teenagers, working on public speaking. So you can imagine how much they were looking forward to that. Stuck in a room with me for a day. But I remember Katie, 15 years old, bit shy, and she was stuck. She said, I've got nothing to talk about. My life's boring. I said, that's not true. Everyone has a story. I don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. It's a bit like one of those rallies you get in table tennis, you know? Yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Thankfully, her friend cuts in. She says, hey, Katie, what are you talking about? You've got a story. What? That one about you when you're at the swimming pool with your dad, do you remember? At which point, Katie, for the first time, looking genuinely worried, says, no, that's really embarrassing, that story. Her friend's eyes lit up. She said, yeah, that's why it's so good. So I said, well, of course, God, tell me the story. At least tell me. Forget them. She says, all right, okay, all right. So I'm 6 years old. I'm at the pool with my dad. And I can still remember he's wearing these really disgusting green swimming trunks. Horrible. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to play a joke on him? So I wait till my dad's not looking in the shallow end, and then I crept up behind him, and then I yanked down his swimming trunks. And he spins round, and that's when I suddenly thought, oh no, that's not my dad. Dad's on the diving board. I said, brilliant, you've got to tell that story. She said, oh no, it's really embarrassing. Do you think there is anyone in this room who doesn't know how it feels to feel embarrassed? 10 minutes later, surprise, surprise, she held her classmates in the palm of her hand. They loved it. But it got better because then it came to the message of her speech. It's one of the key skills in public speaking, as you may know. Tell a story, make a point, as you might have noticed from watching TEDx and TED Talks. Now, to be fair, I was expecting her to come up with something fairly obvious, you know, like look before you tug. But what she said was this. She said, at first, the man looked a bit cross. But then he laughed because he realized I was only 6. It might have been different if he'd been 18. If I'd been 18, I thought, yeah, you better believe it would be different if you'd been 18 and you'd done that. Yeah? But the thing is, she said, over the last few weeks, I've been having all these arguments with mum and dad. You know, I want to go out, they want me in. I want this, they want that. I'm 15 years old. I just want to be older. But when I think about that time at the pool, I guess there are some good things about being young because you get away with stuff that you can't when you're older. What I'm trying to say is this, she said. We should make the most of being young while we still can. People talk about finding their voice. Katie didn't find her voice that day. She'd never lost it. What she found was an opportunity to practice using it. And surprise, surprise, she improved. If you could have seen the growth in her confidence, the self-esteem, the kind of impact and connection that she forged. Imagine the progress she could make over a term or a year or a school career. But that workshop had nothing to do with the curriculum. It was a one-off for Katie and her friends, made possible by 2 charities right here in London, Speakers Trust and the Jack Petchey Foundation. Too many young people, I believe, never even get that opportunity. In one study of inner-city secondary schools conducted by the National Literacy Trust, they found students spoke an average of 4 words per lesson. 4! Can you imagine? I mean, I'm no mathematician, but that's 3.5 hours of meaningful speaking practice over an entire school career? What kind of future is that preparing them for? An apprenticeship in a monastery? If you're 16 years old in this country right now, your ability to write a critique of unseen 19th century non-fiction counts for more than your ability to handle an interview, or speak in public, or make a phone call. To be fair, there is a so-called spoken language endorsement, as you may know. It's compulsory at 16. Everyone has to do it. But guess how many marks it actually counts towards for your final grade? The answer is none. Nothing. 0. Nada. Null point. Diddly squat. Nothing. What kind of message does that send? Because as you and I both know, whether you're here in this hall today, whether you're watching at home or you're at your desk, there are young people out there and in here with awesome potential as communicators, the negotiators, the persuaders, the engagers, the inspirers, the leaders of a generation. Most are faced by a system in this world that says, your ability to connect, influence, and inspire through the spoken word counts for nothing. I think that's a tragedy. For many young people, public speaking at school is more likely to be a punishment than an opportunity. What was that at the back? Don't think I didn't see that. What's so funny? Come on up to the front, share the joke with all of us. Is it surprising so many people grow up dreading public speaking? Is it surprising that so many employers struggle to find the interpersonal skills that they need? Is it surprising that so many people in our society feel neglected and ignored? For too long in too many countries, the education system or the curriculum has been dominated by the 3 R's. Do you remember them? The 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now, don't get me wrong, they're important skills, especially in the last century. But whoever called reading, writing, and arithmetic 3 R's clearly can't spell. We need a 4th R on the curriculum, my friends. There's an idea to spread, especially amongst policymakers. The 4th R, speaking. I know it doesn't start with an R. Public speaking still doesn't start with an R. Doesn't have an R in it. But the best thing about speaking is that when you speak, spelling doesn't matter. This speech is riddled with spelling mistakes. Took a moment. The point is that speaking is central to all learning. To be a better scientist, it helps to speak about science. To be a better mathematician, it helps to speak about maths. Take my father, for example, 40 years in operating theatres as a doctor, and an anaesthetist or an anesthesiologist, 40 years in operating theatres, and yet, as long as I can remember, his message to me, he said, Simon, to be a great doctor, which, by the way, I'm not, and I would personally never be, me, Simon, my father, different story. To be an outstanding doctor, you've got to be able to talk to patients. Now, of course, at this point, again, policymakers may object. They'll say, come on, Simon, very good, you've had your fun, let's not get carried away. After all, young people naturally learn to speak. They don't naturally learn to read, do they? Seriously? What a cop-out. That's like saying children naturally learn to move, so let's not bother with sport. It's crazy. I've spent the last 10 years of my life working with people from all walks of life, helping them with public speaking. And by the way, this is not about me being self-serving, because if we took public speaking, for example, as a skill seriously in the school curriculum, I'd be out of a job. I've had the good fortune to work with thousands of people, literally from all walks of life: engineers, technologists, refugees, entrepreneurs, police officers, school teachers, primary and secondary, academics, politicians, all sorts of people, young people in schools, and yes, I've even been in prison, by choice, just to be clear. What I've found is this: the ability to speak effectively, make no mistake about it, it's a skill, not a gift. To significantly boost someone's life chances, the quality of their spoken communication is absolutely key. And it starts in childhood. I can remember a few years ago working in an all-boys school in London, and I was there for the day, and I remember the headmaster warning me about one of the boys. So watch out for Steve, he can be a little bit challenging. Understatement of the year, if I'm honest. Steve was an absolute nightmare all day, until it came to the boys' speeches. And who do you suppose came in to listen to them? Way at the back, the headmaster came in. So up comes Steve, shabby jacket, scuffed shoes. When you look at me, you probably think I'm a joke. But I'm not. You probably think dead-end kid, probably end up in a gang. But I won't. Come on, headmaster, when you look at me, you must think, Steve, he won't do anything with his life. But I will. Steve didn't find his voice that day. He'd never lost it. What he found was what it's like to speak from here and be listened to. Another Steve, the cosmologist Stephen Hawking, once said, for millions of years, mankind lived just like the animals. Then something happened which unleashed the power of our imagination. We learn to speak, and we learn to listen. Mankind's greatest achievements have come about by talking. Its greatest failures by not talking. With the technology at our disposal, the possibilities are boundless. All we need to do is keep talking. Now, that's what I call someone who knew what he was talking about. Stephen Hawking, what a legend. We live in a world that is changing so fast. Some of the challenges we face are as old as the hills and they're familiar to us. Others are unprecedented. But to address them, we're going to have to listen to people that we may not previously have listened to. We'll need to inspire people whom we might previously have left by the wayside. Either way, our ability, our willingness to truly enable our young people to speak clearly, confidently, and with intent matters. And for that, putting public speaking on the curriculum would be a great start. Because speaking matters, and it starts in childhood.